So folks, there's an article in The Atlantic titled "The Most Corrupt Presidency in American History" by David Frum that I think makes some really important points. Frum interviews Anne Applebaum, who he describes as one of the world's leading authorities on democracy and authoritarianism, kleptocracy, and the rule of law. Frum groups the horrible things Trump is doing under several headers: attacks on due process for disfavored people, impunity for favored people, i.e. pardons, foreign policy that attacks allies and aligns with dictators, economy restructured to empower the state and allow the state to dispense favors, attacks on science, medicine, and objective sources of information, and enrichment by the president, his family, and friends, which Frum says is the binding agency that unites all the others. Frum invites Applebaum to discuss this blatant corruption and how it follows the authoritarian regime playbook. Here's what Applebaum says. If you look around the world, if you look at what links modern dictators, they all share an interest in stealing and hiding money and in helping one another evade the sanctions that have been set up to prevent them from doing that, and in perpetuating not just their own power, but their own wealth. There is now a set of systems that exist, some of which are facilitated by the Western financial world, by the offshore banking havens that we've created, and the shell company system that we've created that helps people hide money. But it's the one thing that they all have in common, and it's the one thing that they all pursue. And so the fact that the Trump administration is moving so quickly in a kleptocratic direction and beginning to eliminate one by one all kinds of norms, defying all kinds of laws, changing existing laws to enable theft, essentially, and to enable corruption, should really alarm us, because this is very often what precedes a broader crackdown on civil society. Wherever you see a regime that is rapidly accumulating money and is rapidly enriching itself, you will see some kind of resistance movement and some kind of crackdown afterwards. And that's, I suppose, why I'm so concerned about it. Applebaum says there are about 4 things happening. One is violations of the Emoluments Clause of the Constitution. This is essentially the clause that says the U.S. president isn't supposed to benefit in any way from relationships with foreigners. She talks about the Saudi-sponsored golf tournament at Trump's property, because why would the Saudis be there if not to influence foreign policy? Then there's conflicts of interest, like Elon and the Doge trolls. Applebaum says Elon can determine government policy towards his own companies. He can direct money to his companies and eliminate regulations on his companies if he wants to. She also points to legal shenanigans, like how Pam Bondi has stopped enforcing laws that forbid U.S. entities from bribing companies abroad and force the owners of shell companies and anonymous properties to register their names, so that when someone bought, for example, an apartment in a Trump building, we would know who the real owner was. And of course, Applebaum talks about the outright corruption and the ultimate grift, the cryptocurrency. She says we have no clear way to keep track of it. We don't know the exact relationship between those investors and decisions made by the Treasury Department or the Justice Department. And it is, again, corruption and self-dealing on a scale that we've never seen in American history. She also reminds us that, presumably, the body that would be responsible for enforcing corruption laws against the president is the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice in this administration is fully controlled by the president. Good times. What I found most interesting in this exchange is that it really answers the question as to why Trump needs to tear everything down. Frum says there are actually statutes on the books that say you're not supposed to do this, and there are broken, but still present parts of the bureaucracy that are theoretically supposed to enforce these laws against you. So you need, for self-preservation, one by one to shut them down. And that is the linking point between Donald Trump's repressive agenda and his corruption agenda. The corruption agenda is possibly legally dangerous, unless you break, also, all the rest of the state. And Anne, of course, agrees. She says he's going to have to break a lot of institutions. He's seeking to break the Department of Justice right now. He will have to break the FBI. He may eventually have to break the federal judicial bench. He will have to either defy all those people or find some way of getting around them, or find some way of intimidating them if he's going to continue. Plus anybody whose job is transparency, including journalists, investigative groups. Those transparency bodies, those legal bodies, all of them will have to be somehow pushed out of the way if this accumulation of funds is to continue. And that's all it boils down to, folks. Trump wants money. And once he and all the schneedles around him have broken all kinds of laws to get it, they're going to have to keep breaking them to keep it. Well, Trump and company, I hope you have the day you deserve. Yeah.